You know, you said these data centers coming into a lot of these different states. In the Maryland, people getting mad because taking a lot of energy. The energy bill is going up. Was because we using so much inference. We using so much AI. You know, and it doesn't just go from Chat GTP and large language models. This is your robots, your robotics. Tesla, they're looking to onboard robotics in the future. Inference is just hitting the inflection point. This is a 10, 20-year thing, guys. So it's like I'm long term. So I'm not gonna say next month is about to blow up. It's starting to, but we can see the trajectory of everything that's coming online, not just chatbots, but like I said, robotics. How does a robot know to what the right size bottle this should be to lift it up? You know what I mean? It has to first scan on the desk, then has to see how far it is away from your hand, how much pressure to give it. Is it going to crack? Is it going to explode? Or you need more pressure as we slip out your hand? All that is inference, little by little by little by little. Every decision, self-driving cars. How do I know not to hit this pedestrian? What's up, fam? Welcome back to JRUS TV. If you're new to my channel, we cover all things business, investing, and self-improvement content. If you're interested, hit the subscribe button. Please hit that like if you find this video helpful. Just trying to give out some good game. If you're returning to my channel, appreciate you tuning back in. You already know what's up. And by the title of this video, what is inference and how this demand will make you a millionaire in the AI revolution? If you've been following me for a while, I've hinted at inference in a good couple of my videos, more so my AMD videos, because AMD is a GPU semiconductor company that creates GPUs for AI workloads. For AI to do what it do. So your Chat GTP, your Claude, for it to run and operate and process all this information, it needs to be ran on GPUs, which are ran in a data center. So go on my videos. I cover that a little bit more. I'm going to be covering all parts of the AI stack and my new Substack that I'm dropping, hopefully by the end of March. It's March 25th. So by the end of March. So this is going to be one part of covering that Substack article. It's a couple pages. I've been working on it for at least 2 months now, I'd say. So I'm going to be reading from that today. There's 5 layers to this AI ecosystem. You have energy, chips, infrastructure, models, and applications. What we're going over today is inference, which would be under the chip category and model category, I would say. So trading in real-time inference is the cause of a massive power demand. The first layer is energy. We're not going to get into energy, but I just want to, I can relate inference to this and why I believe it will make, the main point, it will make you a millionaire over this next decade, 2 decades, long term, you know what I mean? But you got to get the clicks. But seriously, and it depends on how much money you invested in it. But inference demand is, we're starting to see an inflection point of inference. So what is inference, Jonathan? I don't know what you're talking about. Inference, on the other hand, is a logical process of reaching a conclusion or forming an opinion based on evidence, reasoning, and established facts rather than direct observation. So it involves reading between the lines to connect known information, premises, to unstated, unknown information. It is a critical skill for understanding context and drawing. So your context clues, how you want ChatGPT to understand what image you just uploaded, as well as an essential component of deductive and inductive logic. So I have an example here, inference example. So the thunder boomed, my dog hid under the bed and was shaking like a leaf. So say you enter this into an AI model, ChatGPT or a Claude. You say, hey, the thunder boomed and my dog hid under the bed and was shaking like the leaf. What does this mean? AI will say, well, I know that thunder is loud. I know that the loud noises can be scary. And you just said, the text said the dog was shaking, hiding under the bed. I can infer that the dog was scared. So it's really just using its context clues. It's really simple. It's not too complicated. It's really taking the data that you put into it and it's understanding it itself. Using context clues. What does this word mean? How does this sentence match with the other sentence? And it comes to a conclusion. So that alone takes a lot of compute, a lot of energy to run. You said these data centers coming into a lot of these different states. In the Maryland, people getting mad because taking a lot of energy. The energy bill is going up. Was because we using so much inference. We using so much AI. And it doesn't just go from Chat GTP and large language models. This is your robots, your robotics. Tesla, they're looking to onboard robotics in the future. Inference is just hitting the inflection point. This is a 10, 20-year thing, guys. So it's like I'm long term. So I'm not going to say next month is about to blow up. It's starting to, but we can see the trajectory of everything that's coming online, not just chatbots, but like I said, robotics. How does a robot know to what the right size bottle this should be to lift it up? You know what I mean? It has to first scan on the desk, then has to see how far it is away from your hand, how much pressure to give it. Is it going to crack? Is it going to explode? Or you need more pressure as it slip out your hand? All that is inference, little by little by little by little. Every decision, self-driving cars. How do I know not to hit this pedestrian? How do I know to turn left or to come around at a certain angle? All that is inference, and it's 24/7. It's on. It's on. That's why this demand is so crazy, and why it will make you a millionaire. Hope y'all got what I'm saying there, but I feel like I explained it well. Now, shown in this photo below from GTC is pretty much the Super Bowl of AI. That NVIDIA, the leader of this AI revolution, he has this photo that puts up. Inference inflection drives strong growth. NVIDIA full stack expanding AI to all regions and industries. So shown in the photo below, workloads are expanding rapidly across both hyperscalers and enterprise use cases, signaling that AI is moving from experimentation into full-scale commercialization. We're at an inflection point, Some other points that I just want to do. The industry now produces 90% of notable AI models, and inference consumes 80 to 90% of all AI computing power. This represents a complete reversal from when training dominated resource allocation, from MIT Technology Review article. All the links will be posted in here when I do upload my Substack article on, I didn't give you the title. The title is The AI Stack Revolution and How I'm Positioning My Portfolio After the Launch of ChatGPT. That's my name of the article. So I'm going through my stock holdings I'm going through my stock portfolio that looking to capitalize off of this AI revolution, breaking it down a little bit, trying to make it's not crazy technical, but it's not crazy simple. It's like it's a mix in between. So you might have to look some words up, things like that to see what I'm understanding, but take your time, read through it, and put all the pieces together and see how everything works together to make the cake. It's a lot of different parts you can capitalize off of in this revolution. You just got to pick what you want, do your research, and go hard in it, because we're still earning a lot of positions, but I'm trying to sharp y'all as best as I can. And this is just give some thoughts. But look, they said right here, it was training, but now it's inference. Inference is going to take up all the majority of computing power. Inference will consume 165 to 326 terawatt hour annually by 2028, enough to power 22% of all households. So this is the first layer, energy, but that's a bottleneck. That's a whole nother conversation. But energy, we're bigly constrained on energy, and that's a bear case for this whole AI revolution, which I somewhat cover. I just mention it in this article. I don't cover it because I don't want to be too long, but I do mention that as a bear case. But that's not the point of this video, though. Now, examples of this. So now we need GPUs. So you have your NVIDIAs, you have your AMDs, which I'm invested in, and I go through this article. So in 2024, the Blackwell was 25 more energy efficient for large language models inference in the Hopper. And then AMD Instinct designed for AI inference and large-scale deployments. These chips on focus lowering power consumption to compete with NVIDIA. Bottom line up front, these two companies is how you capitalize off this inference boom and how you become a millionaire in the long term, including Nebius, another company. But that's all I wanted to cover there. Now I want to cover. So right here I have AMD at an 18% weighting in my portfolio. And I have NVIDIA as a roughly 10% weighting in my portfolio right now. Okay, so now we're going to go a little deeper into inference. The biggest story to this AI revolution, and this is under my layer 2, chips and computing infrastructure. So this is under this section of my article. But the biggest story to this AI revolution is inference. As stated by MIT, inference consumes 80-90% of all computing power. This is what matters long term. AMD being the largest position in my portfolio currently is because one of the valuation, but their edge in inference. According to the article I mentioned here, AMD is slightly competitive, if not slightly better than NVIDIA when it comes to inference. And I believe another article too, Semi-Analysis, made this thesis as well earlier, sometime last year. Where this is where NVIDIA's CUDA mode isn't as strong. That is important because inference market is eventually expected to become larger than training, as it involves the actual application of the trained model and answering new questions is given. So yeah. Now, I believe I have both NVIDIA and AMD in my portfolio right now, but AMD is more so an 18% weighting. NVIDIA is a 10%, because NVIDIA is a $4 trillion company. It's not doubling. It will in the long term, but more sooner, no. AMD is like a $300 billion company. I can see that getting to $1 trillion. And I've already rolled the NVIDIA ride up. It already happened. The ride up already happened, the big one. Now, it's still more room for gains for sure, but you're not getting the past 2, 3, 4 year gains. Like, you know what I mean? But I'm not bearish NVIDIA. It's enough to go around. So let me get back to the article real quick. What time are we at? 11 minutes. So NVIDIA's dominance is built on comprehensive vertically the CUDA software, which I go over in the article. But now this point here goes further into my thesis as well, because towards the end of 2025, NVIDIA purchased Grok, a designer of high performance artificial intelligence accelerator chips, for $20 billion in cash. This purchase further backs my thesis that inference will continue to be the leading need. And you put a period right there. It's still a draft. It's not finalized just yet. Quote from the CEO, Jensen. He said, "We plan to integrate Grok's low latency processors into the NVIDIA AI factory architecture, extending the platform to serve an even broader range of AI inference in real time." Essentially, they bought this company out because even they know inference demand will exceed training, and by a crazy margin. Crazy. So how do we capitalize off of this? We invest in NVIDIA and AMD, because the need for compute is crazy. And these are the only two places you can really get high-end GPUs right now. You can't just start a new company. The mode is good. Even the hyperscalers, they can do their own stuff. But when it comes to complex workload, AMD and NVIDIA right now are the main two markets. That's all you have. As you can see here, the data center revenue in NVIDIA has skyrocketed, and you see how low AMD data center revenue is. Now it's starting to accelerate, but look how much market share NVIDIA has sales. Even if AMD took 20% more of that, they don't need too much. AMD doesn't need too much. They just need to start chipping that market share little by little, just like they did with Intel. Intel was the leader in CPUs until they lost the ball. And then AMD came and took market share. Lisa Su, she came through, took market share, and now you see where AMD is at, leading over Intel. So you got to stay down for the process. Okay. So I said, when you look at the AI infrastructure layer, NVIDIA is currently the dominant player today, but AMD is emerging as one of the most credible challengers, particularly as the industry shifts towards inference. Let's see. Like I said right there, go back. NVIDIA controls the majority of the market, roughly 85-90% of the market. Like I said, they own the majority of the market, but it's a lot of market AMD can chip at. I said AMD is starting to carve out a real position in AI stack, especially as the industry shifts towards inference. In my 400 series later this year is definitely going to push AMD over the edge. This is a $350 stock. You know what I mean? This year, 300, 350 this year. Long term, I can see it being 1,000, maybe by 2030. Training built on the models, but inference is what actually monetizes the AI. Every real-time interaction, whether it's chatbot response, recommendation engine, or AI-driven workflow, requires continuous compute. This shift towards an always-on usage is what's driving the next wave of demand, and it opens the door for players like AMD to capture share in a market that is expanding rapidly beyond just hyperscalers. You know, I think this is in my cloud section, but as the demand for training and inference capacity continues to grow, specialized AI cloud providers like Nebius is the third investment I would say can capitalize off of this demand, have the potential to capture meaningful growth by serving startups, enterprises, and developers. Now, Nebius, I have another video on my channel kind of covering Nebius a little more in depth, but Nebius is a full stack AI data center play, and they have their own token factory. So I don't want to get into that right now. Essentially, every time you put a chatbot response in ChatGPT, hey, do this, that, and the other. Like I said, my dog is scared, whoop, and it starts to inference. ChatGPT starts to inference, it starts to reason what you're saying. That's a token, you know? That's how these companies monitor their how much spending they're doing, because each token costs to compute, to do that inference, like I said. Now, Nebius is an AI data center full stack play. So if a smaller company wants to develop, say, their own chat GTP, they can come to Nebius and they'll give them the GPUs that they need to process all of this data. You ask them a million questions, it runs to those GPUs because it's a lot of stuff you asking it, essentially. So basically, once it does that, it generates a token. Nebius has their own token factory for inference. AI, I forgot what it's called, but they have their own token factory, you know, and the TCO, total cost of ownership, has been showing to be lower than, say, their other competitors, Amazon, hyperscalers, things like that, because they specialize in it and they have their own software. That's the third piece. They have their own GPUs, they have their own networking cluster, and they have their own software, which can handle these AI workloads, but also not even do that, but also monitor it, so they know how many tokens. So a company can just come to Nebius and start their whole AI business straight from there, instead of buying their own data center, buying these GPUs that are like 20, 30,000 for one GPU, and you need clusters, which I go over in my article, but you need clusters to power a lot of this stuff. If I'm losing you, let me know in the comments. But if you're keeping up, let me know I'm keeping up, Jay. I'm keeping up with you. But do your own due diligence and look through it. But yeah, Nebius have potential to capture meaningful growth by serving startups and developers that require scalable compute outside of traditional hyperscalers. So that's just a little piece right there. But just to further back on my thesis, on Meta's Q2 2024 earnings call, the CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, said, previous Facebook, he said, it's hard to predict how this will trend multiple generations out into the future. But at this point, I'd rather risk building capacity before it is needed rather than too late, giving the long lead time for spinning up new inference projects. There you go. You have CEOs of trillion-dollar companies saying, look, I'd rather overspend than underspend. And if you follow Zuck, he spins. He said, I'd rather overspend because we'll use it for something else. But as inference loads go online, we need more capacity. You know? 600 billion plus in capex on AI cloud across the hyperscalers announced for 2026. So yeah, this is another few other quotes. One of the what was this? I think it was the CFO of either the CFO or the CEO of the CEO of Nebius, one of the companies I mentioned. So the top 3 companies right now I'm saying to become a millionaire off of this that I'm invested in, not financial advice: AMD, Nvidia, Nebius. But the CFO highlighted a major shift occurring across the industry. The transition from AI model training to inference represents the real-world deployment of AI systems. Another one, as more companies move for AI to deliver on a commercial vision, inference needs to outstrip training, which it is. Now, let's finish this video off. I believe both AMD and Nvidia will benefit as the AI build-out continues. With AMD at a significantly smaller market cap than Nvidia, I see room for meaningful upside if it executes well in the inference-driven phase of AI. And that's not even just a start. I don't even want to get that deep into it, but inference, you got AI at the edge, your phone, your computer. So AMD, Nvidia, Nebius, my top 3 buys to capitalize off of this inference boom that we're going to see over this next decade, 2 decades. And as more technology comes online, robotics, humanoid robots, healthcare, all these industries come online, man, an inflection point like Clawbot. We just saw that, you know, your online digital assistant, that's a ton of inference. But y'all get the gist. If y'all enjoyed this video, hit the like, comment, subscribe button. Let me know if y'all follow me or if I was rambling too much technical. But hope y'all follow this video. JRuss TV.